Hello, this is Joe Polish, president of Piranha Marketing and founder of the Genius Network interview series, and you're about to hear one of my Genius Network interviews, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you find it very useful. If you want to find out more information about some of the interviews and resources that can help you in your business, you can go to www.joepolish.com. And we have a Joe Polish Recommends section with all kinds of resources and vendors and services and products that we recommend that can help you in your business. And also for more useful interviews and a whole list of other people that I've interviewed, you can go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks and enjoy the interview. Hello, this is Joe Polish. This is going to be a very special Genius Network interview. What I would like to say before I get started is that the individual that I'm going to interview has a very expansive background. I'm going to read his bio here in just a moment. It'll be the only part of the interview that I actually read. And one of the things, since you're listening to an audio, is you don't have the advantage of seeing this individual in person. But I'll describe who he is in a moment, and then I'm going to recommend that you actually visit his website. It'll give you some perspective. But let me just tell you a little bit about who Sean is. His name is Sean Stevenson. He was expected to die at birth. He's faced an army of reasons to give up and countless opportunities to embrace pity. He suffered more than 200 bone fractures. By age 18, he reached a height of only 3 feet and is permanently confined to a wheelchair. Despite his challenges, he took a stand for quality of life and has inspired millions of people around the world, including Tony Robbins and President Clinton. At the tender age of 9, Stevenson found the purpose for his life after suffering a fracture to his left femur from a simple activity that wouldn't have even bruised the average child. His mother then asked a life-altering question: "Sean, is this going to be a gift or a burden?" Her question set Stevenson free, and the answer fueled a quest to show the world that we choose whether every moment is a gift or a burden. Now, Stevenson has had more life adventures than most people who are twice his age, spending time in the political sector. He worked on Capitol Hill for U.S. Congressman William O. Lipinski, and in the White House alongside President Clinton. He has also testified in front of the United States Senate on 2 separate occasions. After realizing that he could change the world in ways besides politics, Stevenson branched off and developed a thriving professional speaking business addressing schools, companies, associations, prisons, hospitals, and public seminar events. He graduated from DePaul University in Chicago, Illinois, where he received high honors in the College of Liberal and Arts and Sciences. He received his psychotherapy degree from American Pacific University in Honolulu, Hawaii, where he is currently completing his doctorate in clinical hypnosis. As a board-certified psychotherapist, he runs a private practice out of Oakbrook Terrace, Illinois, which is where I am sitting right now with him right across from me. Over the past decade, he's traveled to over 47 states and 6 countries where he found that individuals are notorious for making excuses, such as, "I would work harder, but it wouldn't make a difference." Sean also addresses the excuses as well as the buts, B-U-T-S, that fuel the insecurities behind them. "I would love myself, but I'm not pretty enough, wealthy enough, popular enough, etc." Sean has created a movement committed to educating people how to get off their butts and stand in life. Stevenson has recently written his 4th book, Get Off Your Butts, How to End Self-Sabotage and Stand Up for Yourself, which came out in May 2009, which is a hands-on guide for overcoming the forces of negativity and self-sabotage. This book offers an inspiring program for surviving difficult times, eliminating excuses, ending insecurities, and standing up for happiness and success in life. And there is much more that I could say about Sean, but what I'd like you to do, if you're not driving, is check out his website, Sean Stevenson, spelled SeanStephenson.com. The reason I want you to go there is, for one, buy his book. Just get it. It'll be fabulous. You will love it. It could change your life. But secondly, I want you to see what Sean looks like. Watch some of the videos. He's got endorsements from Bill Clinton, Tony Robbins, all kinds of famous people. The guy's been on all kinds of television programs, and I met him a couple of years ago. First time I've had an opportunity to do an interview with him, and I believe you're going to find a lot of wisdom and insight here. But more so, the subject of self-sabotage, and most people that listen to Genius Network are entrepreneurs. They're out there every day working, doing their best to run businesses, create value in the world, and I believe when they look in the mirror, they're sometimes looking at the biggest problem in their life, but they're also looking at the solution. And Sean helps people do a lot of stuff. So, Sean, first off, we've arranged this interview. I've actually come to your office to record this. We've just been speaking for a couple of hours with one of my friends that's here with us. And what did I not mention that the listeners should be aware of before we kind of just get into some questions?
Well, you probably mentioned more than they wanted to know, so I think we're good.
Yeah, no, I did mention a lot. What would you say your skill set is right now? After all the things that have happened in your life, you've one of the things we talked about when we were having dinner before the interview here is that you had a situation happen with your mother. I want to go back to it. I mentioned it in the bio. You were 9 years old. First off, describe yourself physically. Not to put a magnifying glass on it, I just think it's important for context of...
Sure, absolutely. Well, I was born with this rare condition where it causes the bones to be stunted in growth, as well as extremely fragile. And because of that, I reached a height of only 3 feet tall. And also because of that condition, my bone structure couldn't support standing physically and walking. So I use a wheelchair for mobility. It's funny, Joe, people say I'm confined to a wheelchair. I really am not. I'm very grateful for my wheelchair. It allows me to travel the world. So with this condition, my bones are also curved. Many of the arms, the long bones, the arms and the legs, were subject to the strength of the muscles, so therefore they never fully straightened out. And I had rods put in and out of them, didn't work. And all my ribs come together at the sternum. And thank goodness they do, because my rib cage got to expand to leave room for all the vital organs. And even though I'm only 3 feet tall, the organs are practically normal size for somebody who would be my age.
Wow.
So the chest cavity had to go out because the rib cage and the spine did not go up. And that was one of the challenges growing up as a child, is I never want to take my shirt off at the pool because I was ashamed that I had this elbow-looking thing kind of poking out of the middle of my body, which was my sternum. And yet, truth be told, it really was my saving grace, because a lot of the individuals born with my condition, if the rib cage doesn't expand, they have lung problems and often die prematurely.
Wow. So now you had explained to me that your bones were like chalk. I mean, they would break from just reaching for something or sneezing, and you broke 200 bones.
Well, it's not that I broke 200 bones. I broke 200 times. So what I mean by that is my arms, my legs, my tailbone, my ribs, my collarbone, they would break constantly. So it wasn't a matter of like I went through and I systematically snapped every single bone in my body. There were 200 fractures that we lost count after. So it could be actually more. And at birth was the most traumatic because every bone in the body was practically crushed because of coming through the birth canal. And with this condition, something as simple as sneezing, coughing, I still have a knot in my collarbone that never healed up because when I was a kid I had the flu, vomited, broke the collarbone, and as I was vomiting, broke the collarbone, and it never healed up right. And so the bones were very much like glass or chalk in some ways, and we would get stress fractures, meaning just day-to-day sitting up in my wheelchair, reaching for things, and then that would just keep wearing on the bone, and then one afternoon I'd be sitting in my wheelchair not doing anything, and bam, I'd break an arm, or bam, the leg would break, and it would be called a stress fracture because it was finally hit its last point, even though there was no impact to the body. So I grew up most of my life till the age of 18, 19, where I knew any split second of the day I could go in excruciating pain. And that actually was a gift because I have a tremendous respect for any day when I'm not in pain. And so my law of contrast is I promise you that I enjoy my life probably more than most people that roam this planet that have far more physical capabilities than I do.
Yeah, you physically can't walk. There's a lot of things that a lot of people, at least how they would look at you and say, this person can't do this, but you've been able to transcend so many things in your whole attitude, everything about you is, you're not a guy that I've seen complain about anything. You're just, you're loving life. You help a lot of people break out of their own self-induced prisons. What do you actually do? What do you do for people?
Well, we have several things that I do. Do you mean therapeutically?
Yeah, in your book, I mean, what do you actually you rip the victim out of people is a phrase that you've said many times. You write about it in your book. When you've been on television, that's what you say. I mean, what does that mean?
Well, in life, things happen to us, and it's not what happens to us. It's not our condition that shapes us. It's our interpretation of that condition and those events. And the interpretation develops the human condition. And I was fortunate enough to have some insights because of my family, because of my deep spiritual connection, and because of surrounding myself with really smart people over the years. I've labeled my experiences, the facts of Sean, as really empowering experiences, whereas somebody else with my condition, and there are many, don't do anything with their lives. They get angry. They feel, why me? Life's not fair. This didn't happen to other people. And that's the victim. The victim mentality is things happen to me outside of my control. The victor mentality is I'm in control of my mind, and so therefore I'm in control of my world. And so I have a belief, it's really a driving part of my life, that mentality creates reality. Victims believe that reality creates mentality.
Wow, that's a great distinction. Now let's go back to the conversation with your mother at 9 years old. Kind of briefly tell the story leading up to it, and then she said something that has become a really defining moment. Not only did it change the course of your thinking, but it changed the course of your life.
Absolutely. So growing up with this condition, I would be stared at physically by people every minute of the day. Didn't matter where I went, what I was doing, what time of day, people were looking at me, and that really bothered me growing up as a child. I just wanted so badly to put on a baseball cap and disappear into a crowd and be normal, be average, which is funny. Most people spend their whole lives trying to stand out and look like they fell into a tackle box with all the piercings and craziness that we do to ourselves to stand out.
That's funny. I like that, fell into a tackle box with all the piercings.
So here's the thing. With this condition, I loved Halloween because that's the one day out of the year as a child I got to blend in. Everybody dresses up, they put on the makeup, the costumes, and now Sean's just like everybody else. I loved that. It was 24 hours of bliss. And so, 4th grade, on the floor, out of my wheelchair. And when I'm out of this wheelchair, Joe, I look like an adorable roly-poly bug. Okay? And I'm out of this wheelchair, and I'm a mummy, and I'm rolling around on the floor, and my mom's making my lunch to take with me to school. So she's in the kitchen, and I'm on the floor in the living room, rolling around, thinking, oh, I look so good. I can't wait to show this off to my friends, the candy, the parties. And as I'm rolling around, I catch my left leg on the corner of the door, and I bend it back, and I snap it at the femur. And Joe, if you've ever broken a bone, you know there's a time delay between hearing the sound of a snap and feeling a pain. And even though it's a split second, it felt like an eternity that day because I knew I had 4 to 6 weeks to heal. And I was going to miss the party, miss the one day where I got to blend in, miss being with my friends, miss trick-or-treating, my favorite day out of the whole year. And then I felt the pain, which just caused a white-hot anger to rush through my body. And I remembered screaming something out loud that brought my mom into the room. I screamed something that many of us either think or say or experience. I said, why me, God? What did I ever do to deserve this?
And you were just 9 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was furious. I was furious that I had to go through this. I felt I was being punished for something I had no control over. And I was furious because I was a good student. I was a good kid. I loved my family. I was just totally baffled why I had to go through this. And that no matter what, I was going to be with this for the rest of my life. And so my mom could see that anger in me, and she tried to calm me down the way that they did many times prior and that we would have to do many times again. She played this little game to distract me from the pain. Because they couldn't race me to the hospital, Joe, because there's nothing the doctors could do. If they tried to set the bone, they caused the whole bone to crumble like chalk and make it worse. So my mom or dad would have to keep me immobilized for 4 to 6 weeks in the very spot where I would be fractured to heal. And my mom...
So literally, and let me make a point of that, not just skip over it. So you're on the floor where you're there for 4 to 6 weeks. That's where they fed you. That's where you had to use the bathroom. They couldn't move you because of this condition. Your bones would crumble like powdered chalk.
Well, they would keep snapping. They would keep crumbling. Yeah, it wouldn't that they would go to powder, but they would continue to crack like glass. No different than a vase.
Wow. Okay.
So my mom could see the anger in my eyes, an anger she'd never seen before, because it was like I had it. I was done. I was really done with this. And my mom leaned back, and she formulated a question. The question changed my life. She leaned forward. She ran her fingers through my sweaty hair, because whenever I'd break a bone, my temperature would skyrocket. She just looked deep into my eyes, and she said, "Shh, Shawnee, is this going to be a gift or a burden in your life? I'm thinking, is this woman crazy? A gift? Joe, you and I have had gifts. They come on our freaking birthday, and we open them up, and we go, "Ooh, how could this be a gift?" I did not understand. It's like she was speaking another language. But that was 1 second. Nothing came out of me, because then my life changed forever. There was this warm, like I call it, a wind of wisdom just surrounding me. And everything was made clear for the rest of my life in terms of why I was into this condition. I realized that I loved my life. I really did. Amidst all those fractures. And maybe the purpose to my pain was to teach other people how to love their life amidst their pain. Because my mom taught me this one other piece of beautiful wisdom in that day. She said, Shoni, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And pain is inevitable. It touches us all. And it wasn't until many, many years later, Joe, and thousands of dollars of therapeutic education to become a therapist, that I realized everyone fractures. Everyone goes through fractures in life. No one escapes without a fracture. Now, their fractures vary. Some have fractures in their marriage. Some have fractures in their finances. Some have fractures in raising their children. Some have fractures with their health. But everybody fractures. And I realized at that age that maybe God made me fragile on the outside, the body, to help those that were fragile on the inside with their spirit. And I've never looked back since for why this condition is a part of my life. And it's really fueled. Anytime I get away from healing people and teaching them to heal themselves, really, the universe just nudges me back like, you silly little guy. What are you doing? Go back to your purpose. We put you into that container for a reason. And so this is who I am. I can't do anything else because the world wants me to do this. And I've grown to love it.
Well, at 9 years old, to have that sort of perspective, I mean, from the stuff you've written, from clips that people can see on YouTube, your new television show, 3 Foot Giant, you seem to be a pretty evolved individual right now. I mean, you are. I shouldn't say.
My sister would tell you I've got you snowed.
Yeah. Well, no, but you have some really amazing perspectives, and you're doing good stuff. And honestly, I've met a lot of people. I've met people with disabilities. I've met people that have had a lot of bad things happen to them. I mean, you have every reason in the world to have a bitter attitude if you chose to, but you chose not to, and you've transcended many things.
I think you said the right word there. It was a choice. And it's a choice I make every morning I wake up.
So let's take you back to that 9-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Did you live in pain most of your childhood?
Oh, it depends on what we mean by pain.
Physical pain, mental pain?
I grew to understand the physical pain. I talk about it in my book. I said that pain was my teacher, and I became its good little student. And I always have.
You mentioned something to me when we were eating. You said that the good thing about pain. And of course, when someone says the good thing about pain, explain that.
The good thing about pain is it brings us to the present moment.
And what's important about that?
Well, it's important is because this is really where life exists. And most people who are unhappy, everyone that's unhappy, is living in the future, afraid, what I call the but what if, or they're living in the past, but why? And that's where pain is. Suffering is in the future and the past in your mind. The present is a very peaceful, still place. And even though physical pain can be rupturing through your whole body and breaking you in half, literally, it's tearing you open to this moment. And that's why many kids cut themselves so they can get into the moment and feel something as opposed to a numbness. And while that's a ineffective way to go about doing it, pain does have that element.
Very interesting. Well, do you think most people are in pain?
I think most people are suffering. I think there's a difference. I think that suffering is the why me, and the suffering is it's not fair. And I'll tell you how I deal with fairness. Maybe about high school I learned that fairness is an illusion. I'm thinking about writing a new book called Life is Fair and really rocking this planet. And I say that fairness is an illusion because it's only in your mind, Joe, if you think that you got a better body than me. Because I'm here to tell you, you got a different body. My body can do things that yours can't. Your body can do things that mine can't. And my core belief is that we all got different stuff. No one got better or more. It just looks that way. You know, if you play cards, you know that if you play cards right, you can literally go all in on a pair of twos and everybody else folds with better hands and you win the pot. I've run my life that way. You know, this is a pair of twos right here that is trumping all these other cards. And so at the end of the day, I'm here to tell you that you didn't get more or less than someone else. You just got different stuff. And how you use the stuff you were given determines whether you're really enjoying your life.
Well, first off, that's great. Now, the outcome I would like, there's many different ways that people could take what you say and what you hear and interpret it and stuff. The outcome that I would like for my listeners is to give them, if anything else, some real perspective about their lives, some real perspective about their possibilities, some real perspectives about understanding that how far they go in life, financially, relationships, values they create, joy that they get out of their life. They have way more control and responsibility for that than I think a lot of times people give themselves credit for. And they could hear a lot of encouraging and motivational words, but they don't really hear it usually from someone like you. And from someone who's not only lived much worse conditions, and when I say worse, from my perspective, you've been through some incredible adversities that you've transformed, and not only have you changed your life around, you're now influencing millions of people, through getting your words out there. And this is just my attempt of sharing some of your knowledge and your wisdom and encouragement with other people. But at the end of the day, I just want, any people that I could put a smile on their face, make their life a little bit easier, let them know that, hey, you can do something more, inspire people. That's good. I mean, that helps. You've also taken your quote unquote condition and you've parlayed it into business. You've parlayed it into not just your story, but into lessons and coaching people. And in the process of doing that, you can really impact people. So why do you mentioned to me that you really look at yourself as a healer? First off, define what that means, and why do you want to do it? Who needs to be healed and why?
I think we all do. I want to be clear so that there's no misunderstanding. I have bad days, Joe. The difference is I figure out real quickly what's causing them, and I get it together faster than most. And so when people see me, they're like, oh, you're just positive all the time. I say, no, you're just not looking close enough to find when I'm not. And that's the difference between a person who complains and makes their life identity about complaining and a person who becomes a victor and goes on to do great things. The victor falls down just like the victim. But the victor figures out where are they stumbling, what rocks are they tripping on, and they just get faster at popping back up. And that's really what my life is like. I pop back fast. And also I find when people are victims, and a victim is a behavior, it's not a person. So we're clear on that. And I don't believe that we are our behavior. I better not believe that, or I'm useless as a therapist. If I believe that you are your behavior, if I even believe that you are your condition, like if you are ADD, I'm useless to you, because if I buy into that's who you are, that's how I'm going to treat you, and that's how I'm going to think of you, and that's the world I'm going to create when I'm around you. And I refuse to do that to you. And so I don't believe you are your behavior, I don't believe you are your condition, I believe you are infinite. I believe that in every moment, every single one of us can tap into something much greater than we ever thought possible for our life. And the challenge is that when we hear that, we think, that's just woo, that's just motivational cliche. Well, I'm here to tell you, problems in people's lives are very complex. Have you ever seen Christmas lights in a big ball? They're just all tangled together, right?
Yeah.
That's a problem in people's lives. That's the type of problems that they have from the standpoint of their life. It gets really complex and their problems have all these layers to them. And then they come to me and my solutions are so simple that they're like, this is crap. I'm like, excuse me? And they'll say, because the solution is so simple. And I say, yeah, I'm here to tell you, your problems are perplexing. They're simple solutions. And that's why when a person works with me, they have to, from the beginning, agree that when something feels really right and simple, that's probably what you need to be doing. And that when people think that they need all these 25 steps for this and that. You got to do this thing for that to release your problem. No. When I see a client, I see them one time, 14 hours, and never again. Does that mean they're fixed from the standpoint of they never have a bad day? No. I just give them the tools so that they can operate their brain on their terms, so that their emotions don't run them, they run their emotions. And I also help them to recognize that nothing happened to them as a punishment. Everything happened to them as a lesson. And some people never get the lesson, so they keep repeating the experience. So when I go into people's lives, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated with every human being I've ever met, Joe. Because at the end of the day, if I pulled anybody out of this population and sat them down and we brought them onto this interview and I asked them a series of the right questions, we could have a book. We could have a best-selling book just out of their life. I don't care how boring you think that person is. Why? Because what runs through them is a human condition. And when we really pull out the human condition, we can learn so much from each other. So I go into prisons and I work with prisoners and I tell them, hey, you and I have a lot in common. And they're like, what? I'm like, I haven't even stolen a candy bar, and you were here for some heinous activities, supposedly, that you did. And I'm here to tell you, I'm imprisoned by my body, and you're imprisoned by your past. We can learn a lot from each other, can't we? And we go down that road together, and commonality is what builds a bond. And I talk about how a lot of leaders who are brilliant suffer in their relationships, and they suffer in their interactions with employees and customers because all they're doing is communicating. And communication is just an exchange of information. Well, our BlackBerries can communicate. There's no soul in that BlackBerry. So what's the difference between communication and the next level? Well, that's what I've dedicated my life to studying, and that's connection. And connection is not an exchange of information, it's an exchange of humanity. It's an exchange of emotion. It's that moment where I crawl inside your world and I say, hey, I know we don't look alike, but I promise you, we're human, and so we're getting through this together, and I think I can help you. And we care about that person on the other end of their lenses of their eyes. And once a human being knows we care about them, they'll listen to us. They'll take our direction. They'll follow us to the end of the earth. But until they feel that, we're just communicating, and they'll always be skeptical of what are our motives. But once we know that they care about us, we'll follow them anywhere.
What's the difference between a person who is like got an agenda, fake caring, just doing stuff because they want something from someone, more like instead of using someone for a mutual benefit, it's more like a misuse. They're just trying to get something out of someone versus a real sincere appreciation. I mean, you made a comment. Let me put this into some context. You made a comment that I just love people. I love humanity, and that if you hate someone, well, I'll let you explain it instead of me trying to explain what you said. But you talked about there's absolutely zero use of hating someone, and you actually love someone. And when I first heard that, I was like, okay, well, let's hear what you're going to say about this. But can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, my mentality is I love everyone, and it's hard for most people to understand because it seems ridiculous. How could I love someone that's mean to me? How could I love someone that's doing evil on this planet? How could I love someone I don't know? And that's really what pops into our head first. Well, the second you hate someone, dislike someone, hold just a disdain towards them, they own you. And you become their puppet. And if you think about it, Joe, there's probably people in your past that may have screwed you over. There's people in your past that just did not treat you with the respect or the admiration or just the justice that you deserve as a human being. It's very easy to go, you know what? I have right to hate that person, Sean. And I would say, okay, so you swallow the poison, and it's breaking you down, and you're dealing with health challenges, and you're dealing with relationship challenges, and you're dealing with these problems in your life. And you think, well, there's no relation to that, and yet it's the poison that we hold towards others in anger that breaks us down. And so that's why I tell people hating somebody is a waste of time, because of one of two things: either they don't care or they don't know. So why?
Right.
And when you hate someone, your whole life changes, because now you change your plans, your life course, and you think about them, and they just get into you like a hamster in a hamster wheel. And instead of thinking about the people you love and thinking about the things that you enjoy, you keep spending time on this person that obviously is not healthy for you in some level. and you give them the power. And so I'd rather be free of that. And the way I found to be free is to love everyone, and not just for that reason, but there's many, many other reasons to love everyone. But I found that it serves me best because when I go into a crowd, I'm probably the quickest to befriend the crowd. When I get one-on-one with an individual, I'm probably the quickest to befriend an individual because right off the bat, they know that no matter how rude, obnoxious, mean, whatever the reputation is that I may know about ahead of time, I'm going to go in there with that unconditional love, and they're going to feel it, and we're going to start on a level playing ground that they may not get that often.
So is this a process that you get to that point, or is this something that can very quickly happen in a person's life?
Yes. Both.
Yeah.
It is a process.
Because I'm sure people are listening to this saying, okay, well,
how do I do
that? Some may not believe it at all and say, yeah, whatever, because they're jaded or they're filled with resentment. Other people are like, it makes sense, but how the hell do I get there?
Yeah.
What do I do? What do you say to that?
Well, I would give them context for why people do things that aren't right, why people do things to cause pain. And for those that are skeptical and those that don't like me, I like you too, so keep listening. And I would say that you have to understand the context of why people do bad things. Okay? And I this isn't just my philosophy. I got it from people like Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, a man who survived the Holocaust and was tortured and figured out how to love the guards, and he survived.
Right.
And right there's some power. And so I've surrounded myself with books and videos and mentors and just really peaceful people in my path and just reverse engineered a lot of it. And here's what I came up with. That the hurt and the healed heal. And that as long as you are hurt, everybody that comes into contact with you will hurt. Even if you don't want to. Even if you aren't intending to. But because it's going on inside of you, it will come out onto them. And this is why people get into habitual bad relationships, because they haven't healed themselves. So then every relationship they get into, they leave a wake of pain and destruction. And this is why there are other people, and sadly there are a lot fewer on this planet, but people that are truly healed, that have really made peace. And everybody they come into contact with, it's like a magical dust is spread around them. And then everybody comes away from them and goes, what just happened? I actually like my life right now.
Right.
And that's because they're healed. And sure, you can get hurt again, and then you got to go back to healing. But the question is, do you stay in hurt? Do you become a fan of hurt? And a lot of people do become fans of their hurt, and then they take it out. I'm reading a book right now called The Wisdom from the Batcave. I'm a big Batman fan, big time. I love that he's the one superhero that doesn't have special powers. He's just rich as hell, and he's got all these cool gadgets, and he gets all the chicks. I mean, how can you go wrong with Batman, right? So I'm reading this book, The Wisdom of the Batcave, and he says everybody in their life either becomes the superhero or the villain. And both of them have bad things happen to them. The superhero says, I will never allow another people to have to go through this. Another person should not have to go through this, and I will dedicate my life to that. And the villain goes, this is ridiculous. I can't believe I had to go through this. I'm going to get mine while I'm here. And they had the same exact scenarios take place. Interpretation of the facts, not the facts.
Right. And they both, in a lot of cases, have the same available skill sets or resources, just used in completely different ways.
And that's very much here on this planet right now.
Wow. So what's the reward that people get for being a victim, for being in pain?
They get to be right, which is one of the biggest addictions on the planet. I think being right is more addictive than coke, heroin, meth, alcohol, you name it, sex. Being right.
So if they need to be right, they're addicted to this constant struggle and suffering.
Yes. So you get your story validated, so you get off the hook temporarily. What I always tell people is if you want to get off the hook, that's fine, but it'll be temporary. But the long term will always bite you. Whereas if you do the hard work now and you take responsibility for what took place, it will be a lot of upfront issue, challenge, strength, commitment, but long term you will benefit. And that's why I've been studying this other component to life, which is most people deal with getting through their pain through gratification. And gratification is fleeting, and anytime we reach for gratification, we can never get enough of it. We can never satiate it. We'll always walk away hungry. We have to sleep with another person. We have to do another shot. We have to smoke another hit, right? We got to keep going back to it because gratification doesn't last, but it's the quickest. Right. So it's the easy man's way to getting to feel good. But there's another level. There's another choice. Instead of gratification, it's fulfillment. And fulfillment takes some extra effort. And fulfillment sticks around. Fulfillment doesn't give you an instant payoff. It gives you a long-term residual. And so the way I look at it is if you dedicate your life to fulfillment, and we could talk about that. My life is very peaceful. Why? Because I've slowly weaned myself off of the gratifiers and started heading my life in the direction of fulfillment. And fulfillment comes from the individuals that I've learned from two things only. Growth, so like learning, giving to yourself, stretching your body, stretching out your life, and contribution. And that's giving to others, helping others grow. Growth and contribution. That's it. Never had somebody come into this office, Joe, and sit down and go, Sean, listen, I'm going to need your help. I work with sick children every day, and I'm helping out my grandma, and I'm reading all these personal growth books, and I'm miserable. I don't ever hear that. And I never will. That is comedy. It's so true. What I do hear is, Sean, I have lots of money. I'm not happy. Sean, I can have any woman. I never have to sleep alone, and I feel empty. Sean, I'm never full. I'm starved all the time. What's wrong with me? People come in here with those worlds, and we have to walk them out of them. Most of what I do is re-education. I have to help you unlearn what you've learned. You've learned to blame others, including God, including the system, government, society, your parents, your spouse, your ex-lovers. You've learned to blame because blame gives you that hit. It's that, it's not my issue, it's theirs. Now, what happens is the more you blame, the more power you give away. And so I find that people who blame the most have zero power. When I mean power, I don't mean domination on this planet. I mean true, authentic control over themselves. And the person who has the most control over themselves takes ownership for their life. So can I share with you my life mantra? Absolutely. My life mantra is, I live at cause for everything that happens to me. I live at cause for everything that happens to me. Yeah, because in life you have a choice. You either live at cause or you live at effect. And when you live at effect, then you have all the reasons for why you don't have what you want. And you're right, but you're miserable. And you have all your rational lies. Rational lies, I call it. And your rational lies are all those things that you've dedicated your life to convincing others. And man, you got your story down pat, and people just don't mess with you because that's why you're stuck. And so you get off the hook, but you spend your life in pain, suffering. And so what leads to affect lifestyle is it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. And you end up with obesity, you end up with addiction, you end up with divorce, you end up with homelessness, you end up with all the social ills, violence. It all comes from living in effect. It all comes from that mentality of things happen to me, there's nothing I can do about it. And that's why the majority of people really are born and die struggling their entire life, because they live in effect. Now, if you want to cross over, you want to go even further along in life, you have to live at cause. Now, there's a great price to cause. Cause is saying, I take ownership for everything that happens to me. I don't know why it's happened to me yet, but I will find out. And I know that every single time something goes wrong in my life, I seem to be the one at the scene of the crime. Every time. That's me, isn't it? And so when we get to that part in our life, we take ownership, we become free, because when you live at cause, you no longer have reasons for why you don't have what you want. You start getting results. And I bet, Joe, you can look at different areas of your life where you're at cause, you have the results you want. Right. And in other areas where you don't have what you want, you don't have the results. And so you're living still at effect there. Yeah. And what I've learned to do is surround myself with people that live at cause and ask them very seriously and strongly, please make sure I live at cause. Please make sure that on my darkest day, when I feel that the world is against me and that I am not enough, remind me that I am at the center of all this, that I create my reality from my mentality. And it's hard to do with somebody with a condition like mine because so many people would say, oh man, that must be rough. And they would leave me stuck in my pity party for eternity because they would think, man, if I was in his condition, I would be miserable too. And they leave me there. And I had to transcend that. And now I am on a mission here. And I go into people's hearts and their minds, and I'm like, look, I love you enough to tell you it's time you let go of that mentality that you are not responsible. It's time that you let go of that idea that things happen to you mysteriously. You are not the one to blame. It's not about guilt. It's not about it's your fault. It's about ownership. And I find that the people that really get the most out of life, if something goes wrong, they're the first ones to take ownership for it. You know, the people I really respect at the end of the day, when they put their head down on the pillow, they go, I created this day exactly the way I wanted to.
Now, I guess on the flip side, when you have that level of responsibility, you probably have an appreciation and gratitude for life that people that don't, they never experience that either.
Sure. You get a lot of gifts from living at cause. The challenge, though, is it looks so amazing to live at cause because you have everything that everybody else wants. So you're the ones. If you're living at cause in your business, money is flowing into your life. If you're living at cause with your health, you're in great shape. If you're living at cause in your relationships, you are madly in love with somebody who is healthy for you and you are healthy for them. And that is just revered by everyone, and yet also envy comes around you like you can't believe, and you have to stay strong.
Oh, well, hold on. Let me stop you there. So, people up to this point are listening and go, well, I wanted to figure out how to do better marketing and make more money, and this guy's talking about me being a victim, and I didn't really want to look at that area. And here you are saying, if you live in cause, you're going to make more money. It's going to flow into your business. You're going to have fantastic health. You're going to have great relationships. I mean, that's, if I had to say the top 10 categories of what people want out of life,
health,
I see
wealth,
those,
and relationships.
I think those would probably hit it.
Yeah.
And it's all through this whole thing called cause.
Yes. It's this idea that when something happens to you, you generated it on some level. And that scares people. Because then they look back at their pain and they go, it's not possible. I didn't tell my dad to beat me. I'm not saying that you did. I'm saying that you decided whether or not the world is an evil place.
Is the world an evil place?
Well, that is determined by whether you want to be a victim or a victor now. It's coexisting in everybody at every moment.
It's existing in everybody at every moment.
You
I don't know the exact Einstein quote, but he says one of the things to come to is the world...
a friendly place.
A friendly place.
Yeah.
So, to people listening right now, I'm sure this is resonating pretty deeply with some, if they're really listening here. And they see it as a possibility. And I think all pursuits towards good, towards transformation, towards betterment, start first off with a desire, with a perspective. Things are going to stand in their ways, like fear, like doubt, like skepticism. What's your strategy for dealing with that? Because here we are. I mean, we've just talked about this is very important. This is very significant stuff. Way more than I think I could convey with words to capture anyone that's listening right now and say, man, just stop right there, wherever you're at. Just really listen to what Sean just said. This is really significant stuff. There's all of this fog, these walls, these barriers. For some, some more than others, and it's available to people if they pursue it. I mean, I have a friend, Dave Kekich, who's been in a wheelchair for over 30 years, paralyzed from the chest down. Amazing guy. I don't know if you ever met Dave. He wrote these credos called Kekich credos, and one of them is life's easy when you live it the hard way, and hard if you live it the easy way.
I love it.
I mean, as you were saying things, it's so reminding me of that, because you're like going, it's not going to be easy to get there. You're going to have some initial work to do, but
sure.
When
you live in effect, you can just constantly gratify yourself. Eat whatever you want, not exercise, not put time and energy into your business or your company or whatever, not put any energy into your relationships, blame everybody for your problems. You get left alone, and that's all you ever get left.
Right. Well, okay, so going back to when I said strategy, what is your strategy for handling doubt, fear, skepticism? You take my world of marketing. I teach people marketing strategies. People think, well, you want to make more money, you improve your marketing. There's a strategy for that. You
better
actually
believe.
can employ a
So
strategy.
let me give that to you. I got it. This is one of many, right? And when clients come to see me, in fact, I'm going to break it down and tell you some things in this interview that I've not shared in an interview because I feel it's time to share them. I'm going to open up what happens in my breakthrough session. When a client comes to see me, the biggest turning point for them is when they finally agree with me on that couch that you're on right now, that they are going to live at cause. They are going to own what's happened to them in their life. Once we get them there, and they're not just saying it, but I can feel congruently that that's where they are, then we're about 80% done, and the last 20% is just showing them how to stay there, okay?
Right.
And so what we do is we go through this thing, and I call it the advanced pity party, and I make them wear a little hat. It's like a birthday hat from children's birthday party.
A little pity cap, huh?
Yeah, and I say, okay, one of the ways that I got through life is my parents had this little game that we would play. Whenever I'd feel sorry for myself, they'd go into the kitchen, and they'd come back with an egg timer, and they would say, Sean, you can feel sorry for yourself today. You're human, but today you only get 15 minutes. Go. And when the bell rang, it was back to life. So we do this thing in this breakthrough session where I make a person sit on my couch and we list out on the left side of this whiteboard right here. On the left side of the vertical side, we list out all the people that have wronged you, hurt you, taken from you. And then on the right side, we write out all the events that you had to go through that just were not fair. They were not fair. They took from your soul. They damaged you. And you wish they never took place. And through a period of 14 hours, we unwind your hatred for that board. And we get an embracing of you shouldn't want to trade any of those. And when we do that, they leave that door after 14 hours a totally different person. And so I'll give you 3 strategies that I do to deal with fear. Okay, we call that the but what if. That's all fear is. But what if this happens? It's visualizing the worst case scenario. That's all fear is. Then we got but excuses. And I call that the but I don't have the. Then we have the but insecurities. But I'm not. But I'm not tall enough, pretty enough, smart enough. Right? And what I teach people on how to release those issues is you have to keep control of 3 areas of your life. And the first area is your physiology. You have to get your body to be one of your best components, your best asset. Your body is your best asset. You can invest all you want in your house, but your house could get foreclosed on. Your house could be broken into. Your house could be burned down. The only asset that when you keep giving to that you will get to keep to your last breath is your body. So you got to have amazing physiology. And what I mean by that is many things. One is you got to learn how your body operates. You got to find out from whoever helps you the best way that works for you. I have my own ideas, my own people. But you got to take care of your health through diet, exercise, all that stuff, right? Then you have to literally communicate with your body that you are in charge. Not to impress other people like posturing, like I'm trying to act confident and sexy and you don't want to mess with me. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I don't know where that voice came from, sorry. And then there's this other state where you actually compose yourself. Have you ever seen somebody at an interview or a meeting, Joe, where they're just like this, their leg is just shaking the whole time and they're like playing with things and they're all this, and their energy is just leaking out of them and you're like, what the heck is going on with this person? And you almost start to not feel comfortable around them and not trust them even.
Yeah.
And then there's somebody who comes into the room and they sit down across from you. They breathe slowly. They make eye contact with you. They just have a very sound body. And you feel good around them, don't you? That's a person who's mastered their physiology, or what I call physical confidence. And when a person masters their physical confidence, their dating life magically comes together. Their business life magically comes together, and their psychology magically comes together. Because you only think that your mind and your body are 2 separate things. They're not. They are coexisting together. They are one. The mind is not in your head. Mind is wherever there's tissue, blood, bone, fluid that runs through you. And they know that because they found when people lose limbs, they feel a part of themselves are gone. And when people get organ transplants, they take on, oftentimes, the personality of the organ donor. And so the mind is throughout the whole body. And if I were to do something to you physically, you would immediately get a spiritual, emotional, and intellectual reaction to it. And if I were to do something to you psychologically, you would immediately get a physical reaction to it. You can't separate the two. So you got to master your physiology. That's the first thing that really helps you with fear. Second thing you have to do is you have to master your internal dialogue and your external dialogue. And those are the words that you use when you talk to yourself and you talk to others. In fact, I have a mantra, and it may sound a little weird, but you got to treat yourself like a best friend, like a hero, like a boss, like somebody you love, adore, and respect. And that's so foreign to most of us. It seems childish, creepy, weird, doesn't seem real. And that's why most of us suffer in silence when no one's looking. We beat ourselves up. We don't feel like we're ever enough. And we have this tape loop going on in the back of our mind over and over and over. You're not enough. You're not enough. You're not pretty enough, tall enough, smart enough. You're never going to have enough money. What if somebody takes this money? Why did you screw up that last job? Man, you got an issue. Maybe you're ADD. No, maybe you have an obesity problem. No, maybe you have a drink problem. No, you know what? Your mom's the problem. And that voice just goes. And that voice, we shut up occasionally. We get blitzed. We drink. We smoke weed. We eat. We watch television. We surf online porn. We do everything we can to just get that voice to quiet down for a while. But it always comes back. And that's because all we're doing is gratifying ourselves. There's nothing fulfilling to calm it. And so, sadly, when people commit suicide, they have the belief at the time that that inner dialogue is this evil enemy and that it's never going to change, that they're going to be in that hell for the rest of their life. And so they decide, that's it, I'm going to turn this tape loop off for good. I'm checking out. And it doesn't have to get to that point for anyone. You have to not be afraid of your internal voice. You need to just parent it. See, your internal voice is just like a 2 to 3-year-old child. Joe, let me ask you, if you ignored a child who asked you for ice cream, would it sit quietly on the couch and go, well, Mr. Polish, he doesn't want me to have ice cream. I'll just sit here quietly. Would a child do that?
No.
No. What would a child do?
Throw a temper tantrum.
Because you ignored it, right? The child lives in you. And you ignore yourself. You start throwing temper tantrums. You start saying some mean things. You start tearing yourself down. You start doing anything you can to get the person's attention, that person being you. So you have to parent yourself. Now, I was blessed with the fortune of having 2 great parents that are still an active part of my life. And people, trust me, people try to use that as their butt excuse. Well, but Sean, you had good parents. Well, I got that card. That's the 2, the pair of 2s, right? However, at the end of the day, after age 18, it's up to us to be parenting ourselves. And when we parent ourselves, we say things like this, Joe. When you beat yourself up, you have to interrupt and go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Sorry. I didn't mean that. I'm just exhausted, and I take that back. Here's what I really feel. I feel we just got to calm down. We're going to be all right. Look at all the things that we have done. Look at all the things that we do have control over. You know what? I'm just going to call a friend right now. I'm just going to talk this out. We're going to be all right, buddy. When you start talking to yourself with that level of respect, that level of integrity for yourself, your life does change. And magically, behaviors and addictions drop off. How do I know this? I've seen it. I've seen it with my very eyes. I've seen things that take place in a human being that I didn't think was possible. And when it took place, I almost did a double take. Like, wow, did we just create that in that person? The third thing that we can do is we have to control our focus. And that's what really helps a lot in the internal dialogue. So what do I mean by focus? Well, if we turned off all the lights in this room and I had a flashlight, we could only see what the beam of light flashed onto. The rest of the room wouldn't exist to us, really. And so, if for some reason we just kept flashing at something dark, or dark not light-wise, but evil in the room, maybe like there was a skeleton in the room, we just kept looking at that skeleton and going, oh, this room is filled with skeletons, how horrible! And we turn the lights back on and we realize that the room is just a costume party room, and it's just decorated for a party, and we were fixated on this one thing. We didn't notice everything else there. We have to be very careful what we focus on. And I have the definition for misery. Focus on what you don't have and don't like. You want your enlightenment to begin? Focus on what you do have, you do like, and what you look forward to.
That is a great formula. That's a great strategy, and just with that, people could absolutely transform their lives.
Sure, and it's something, anytime you're having a bad day, right, and whatever that looks like for you, some people it's minor bad things, and other people it's major. I mean, but to us, it's still a bad day. One of those three things are out of whack. You're either not controlling your physiology, you're not using your internal dialogue, or you're not controlling your focus. More than likely, all three.
Let me ask you about the types of people that you've seen turn around lives of victimhood, suffering, even with people that have had, on the outside, externally, people looking at them thinking, oh, they really got their lives together. Because, we've had some conversations. You don't name names, but just, types of individuals. Because I want to give some social proof as to the
magnitude?
Well, the type of people, and also if there's someone out there saying, and again, your whole book covers this subject, but my life is different, but they didn't go through what I went through. I'd first like you to talk about types of people that you've helped and that have been helped through your process. And also, is there anyone out there that cannot be helped, that is beyond, that can't make more money, that cannot have a good relationship? They're too old, they're too overweight, they're too whatever. As your entire book again is about the buts.
Here's what I would say to that second question first.
Mm-hmm.
Second part of the question. The inscription, the dedication to my book. I dedicate my book to fears, excuses, and insecurities. For if it was not you, I would be out of a job. But be forewarned, your days are numbered. So I do believe that all that ever holds us back is the idea that we are stuck with our condition. But as my good buddy Renee, who's one of the stories in the book, says, no condition is permanent. A man grew up in Haiti, abandoned by his family, one of those kids that you see with flies growing all over him, swollen belly. He's a multimillionaire now, happy as a clam. Great guy. How is that possible? He took ownership for his life. He realized, maybe I don't have to live this way. He started putting things together in his head. He started realizing, maybe I just need to connect with people, and if I connect with enough people, they're going to do right by me. I've lived my life that way. I know this is supposed to be a business interview, and it really doesn't sound like it, but I promise you it is, because your business is a part of your life. Your life is not a part of your business, okay? So you get your life together, you get your business together. And I would tell you that what you need to do is you need to remember that this is all in your head. And so I will switch back to your first part of your question. When people come to me with their issues, they're intense. They're intense issues. People don't come to me because they're upset that their chihuahua can't come into the cafe with them. It's not the kind of issues that show up at my door.
Come on, that's a pretty big issue, though.
It is, but only in California. So, the people that show up to my doorstep have oftentimes tried everything. They've gone to every route. They've seen therapists. They've seen social workers. They've been on all kinds of gratifying substances to deal with their pain. And here's the kind of pain we see. I saw a young lady, 24 years old, walked in this very door, sat on that very couch, who was a high-priced escort. Something that most people don't understand, might laugh about, and you wonder, well, how did she get into that? It's very destructive to the soul industry. Well, she was abused as a child and never figured out how to undo that pain, and it spiraled into drug use. She got on crystal meth, was a crystal meth addict, and cocaine. Marijuana was like a light drug for her on a good day. Alcohol. I mean, I'm surprised she was alive. Beautiful girl. She passed us in this room. She's a model. Yet this destruction was destroying her life, and she had an 8-year-old daughter that was about ready to get taken away from DCFS because she was just not a vigilant mom. and her life was a mess. She came in here, and we undid her pain. We went through and we went back to the past, and we healed her up. I didn't heal her, just so we're clear. I don't heal people, even though I call myself a healer. I teach people how to heal themselves. I give them the tools. What they do with the tools is up to them. And I gave her the tools, and she was awesome. She took them, she used them, she implemented them. That was 2.5 years ago. She hasn't been back to a single drug, hasn't had a single drop of alcohol, left the escorting industry, is just looks like a different physical person energetically, is a great connected bond with her daughter now. Her daughter looks up to her as being this hero who turned everything around, and she's, you know, in a nice business now. And so that's one of the examples. We have many others. I'll give you one more from a male perspective. We had an individual who was raised by his mom, who was schizophrenic, and they had bars on their windows, even though they lived in a nice neighborhood. She was paranoid. They would go on vacation, and right before they get to the airport, she'd start screaming, "This plane's going to crash, this plane's going to crash," and they canceled the whole vacation. That might not sound like that bad, but, you know, that's devastating to a child every time you get ready for an exciting moment. The kid grew up to be afraid of women, never gone on a date, hadn't kissed a girl, never danced, just dealing with some major challenges. We worked on untying his knots. He left this program, this breakthrough process, and within 5 months, he had his first beautiful girlfriend. He joined a hip-hop dance troupe, and he went back to school to become a social worker. We see a lot of interesting things. I've had celebrities here. I've had housewives here. I've worked with children here. I've worked with individuals that have more money than God could produce, and that are miserable, and we get down to the root of the fact that money is just an amplifier.
That's an interesting statement. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah. And so we turn it around where I start them to realize that you need to contribute your life, not just your money. In fact, I find that you take any person that is miserable and you make them go work with people that are quote-unquote less fortunate. You go make them spend time in a nursing home and talk to people that are dying. Make them spend time in a children's hospital with children that are dying. You make them work on the streets and help the homeless who are oftentimes dying. And their life is not going to be the same. I've never met somebody who was philanthropic at their core that was miserable.
Okay, now, Sean, you mentioned money. I'd like to hear your perspectives on money.
I believe that money is an amplifier. What do I mean by that? Well, specifically, I think money just takes a person and puts it under a microscope of what their true core values are, what their desires are, what their dreams are, what their life is really all about. And I know that because of the studies that I've been across, the people I've met. I'll give you the example to prove my point. There was a study done on people who won the lottery. And at the same time, they did this other part of the study, which is people that become quadriplegics. You know, they get in accidents where one of their vertebrae are broken and they end up in a wheelchair or on a respirator for the rest of their lives. And that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that when they found these two groups of people, you would think they're the opposite ends of the spectrum. Multimillionaires overnight, confined, losing all feeling for life. Extreme opposites. What they found interesting is that whatever their personality was like and their viewpoint, and the event took place, it shifted their personality and viewpoint, but only temporarily. And that people always went back to the center. Their inner image, their inner philosophies always returned. So the people that were happy before the accident went back to happy after the accident. People that were miserable before the money went back to being miserable with the money. And that's just an example of whatever happens to us, even making money, it's just an amplifier. So if you take a person that's happy without money, they're going to be happy with money. You take a person that's not happy without money, they're not going to be happy with money. They'll have that temporary shift where they're like, oh, cool, I can buy this car, I can buy this Learjet, I can impress these women with this kind of money. And then the body and the mind and the spirit normalizes and goes back to life sucks. Life just sucks with a little more style now. People that are vindictive without money end up being vindictive with money. So when people tell me, careful, Sean, as you get wealthier, it's going to change you. No. It's going to amplify me. It's going to take who I am and bring it to a larger audience and to a larger reach. I love giving to people now at the income level that I'm at now. And I'm going to love giving to people when I've got several more zeros behind my name as well. So I think we put a lot of energy on thinking that money changes us, when I don't believe it does. I think it temporarily shifts us, but then over time it just amplifies us.
So I guess the key point here then is get yourself in the best place you can as soon as humanly possible, because whatever money you bring into your life, which will have a large part to do with having your act together, it's just going to amplify it. And so, I've kind of seen it a million times over. I mean, you know that I've been to quite a few seminars and personal development things, and I've done a lot of stuff in my life. And, you send a jerk to an empowerment seminar, you have an empowered jerk. And so a lot of it has to do with what's happening internally. I think, one of the disadvantages of people not being able to sit across from you is being able to see an individual that, from a physical standpoint, learned that you are not your body. And so I want to ask you, who are you? Who do you think of yourself as when you look in the mirror? When you sit and when I ask you this question, I mean, what do you see?
I would have answered that question differently maybe a couple of years ago. I would have said, I see a strong, confident, powerful, sexy man. And I believed that, and I still do. It's not what I see anymore, though. I really go out of my way now to lose my identity. Even believing empowering things about yourself puts you in a box. Because then on a day that you don't feel like that anymore, you feel miserable. Because you don't feel like you're yourself. So I try to lose my identity. I try to believe that I'm like that blank whiteboard to your right. That I'm, every day, that's me. What am I going to write on it today? And that served me much better than anything else.
So, Sean, let me ask you, the person listening on the other side, our listeners, if they were to sit and think of who they actually are, if you had a choice, if you could wave a wand over all of them, and they wouldn't be listening if they didn't envision on some level a bigger future, because people that don't really care don't even have the possibility, thought, or of awareness that, hey, my life could be better, or hey, I want to improve on some level, no matter if they're doing well and want to do better or in a really bad place and are looking for, some way out. What would you want them to see themselves as? How would you want them to look at themselves? Obviously not as a victim, but beyond that.
Sure, well, I'll say a caveat and then I'll go right to that. If you loved yourself the way I love you, and even though I don't know you, but if you loved yourself the way I love you, you'd never feel alone. And if you were impressed with yourself the way I'm impressed with you, you'd never feel like you weren't enough. And if you thought of yourself and connected with yourself the way that I feel connected to you, you'd believe anything is possible. Now, I know that, sadly, linguistically, that sounds like a motivational quip, but it's really what I believe. And it's beyond the belief, it's what I know. And so if I had this magical wand, what I would have you do is I'd just have you realize that whatever you've done, whatever you've not done, you did the best you could with what you had. And it is my prayer for you and my belief and my hope that you just get better tools and better resources so that you can do better things for yourself. In fact, I believe that there's no such thing as an unresourceful person, just an unresourceful mindset. And if you enhance your mindset, you enhance your life.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I'm going to ask you just a couple more things. You spent over a decade working with kids. You've seen the damages of a child ignored by a busy parent, typically a busy business owner, working, thinking they're trying to support their family, doing the right thing, just trying to make it work. And the whole cat in the cradle sort of thing. What advice do you have for these individuals? You had a couple of parents that were instrumental in
Still are.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. What would you say to all the parents out there? Because even if you don't
Parents of children when they're running their own businesses and everything.
yeah,
Well, I would say this. First of all, again, back to the money as an amplifier. I find when I go in to speak to kids in the richest parts of our country, they have the same problems as the kids in the poorest parts of the country. Because if you think about it, the rich kids, their parents are so busy working that they get ignored, and the poor kids are ignored because their parents are working 2 jobs and doing the night shift, and no one's paying attention to them either. They're suffering from the same stuff. One just has a little bit more flash to what they get to do. One snorts coke and one smokes crack. They're both doing cocaine. That's just a metaphor. So what can we do with our children? Well, I think the best thing you can do is involve your child. I think from a very early age, you should be teaching your child how you bring money into your family, why it is that you're passionate doing what you do, how you service people as a provider of a good or service. Get your child involved. Get your child, give them a little salary to do something in your company. If it's $1 a day, it's your child. You're not going to go to get in trouble with the government. At the end of the day, your child's going to appreciate the value of hard work. At the end of the day, your child's going to appreciate the power of the imagination. And at the end of the day, your child's going to be excited that you do what you do because you help the people that you help. If you don't expose your child to that, they'll get exposed to other things. And while I've heard the best piece of advice for raising children is you can't be the only influence on your child, so you better be the best.
That's great. You can't be the only influence on your child, so you better be the best. So that's my wish for all of our listeners, is to be the best they can be and be a heck of a lot better. And I know that you believe in people more than many believe in themselves, and I think that's why what you're offering is such a huge gift, and I think that's why your words not only need to be heard and hopefully penetrated deep inside the minds of people, but it needs to be beyond a thought. It needs to
be a knowingness.
Yeah, it needs to, and I would like the listeners to really take action off this. I'd like you to share this interview with people that you know. I'd like you to read Sean's book. I want you to go to SeanStevenson.com immediately.
An easier way to remember it is we also have another site that just rolls into that called Time to Stand, TIMETOSTAND.com. And the only way you can get off your butt is to take a stand for your life.
Absolutely. Now, we did not talk about business stuff, and you worked for President Clinton. You're personal friends with Tony Robbins. You've been on many TV appearances. You've garnered much PR. You've got your own TV show. You've written 4 books. I mean, you've done a lot of incredible things for entrepreneurs. And I don't want to end the interview without asking you something about entrepreneurs. And because you claim you don't think of yourself as an entrepreneur, yet in the Spiral Dynamics test, you registered as an extreme capitalist. So I'd like to ask you, how is that possible? And give me some perspective on being an entrepreneur, and then we're going to wrap up.
Well, I don't believe that anyone should label themselves by what they do, because you'll never feel comfortable walking away from it because you'll feel like you left yourself. I mean, I see these CEOs of major Fortune 500 companies, and I see these startup multi-millionaire online dudes, and they're just miserable when they are left to their own vices away from their business. Because they're so wrapped up into the identity. I am an entrepreneur. I am a capitalist. I am a business owner. I am a marketer. Okay, maybe that's an element to you, but that's not who you are. And I say that because what happens if all of a sudden something incapacitates you and you can't do that for a while? You're going to lose your mind? You're going to lose your identity? Probably not worth your You're wild to do that, to set yourself up. This is why when I work with athletes, I let them know you are not an athlete. You are someone that is involved in athletics. Because what happens when the body can't keep up with the younger players? Or they get an injury, they blow out their knee, and they can't play anymore. These are the people that become oftentimes addicts, as we call them.
Then it becomes image management and...
It's identity reassociation. And the best thing is to have a blank slate as your identity. People ask me, so what are you then, Sean? I'm infinite. If I have to pick a word, that's what I am.
So let me ask you, Sean, what is last thing I'll ask you, and then we'll any further guidance and recommendations on how people can really make the most of what you shared here. What's your life purpose?
To rid this world of insecurity.
To rid the world of insecurity.
Because when we're insecure, we only can hurt others and ourselves.
How do you define insecurity?
I define insecurity as believing that you don't have what it takes and that you're not enough.
So, people that have that belief, or a little bit of it, even the ones that don't want to admit it, but they know that there's that voice deep down inside that says, I kind of got a little of that. You have a book, you have a practice.
And my last piece of wisdom on that then would be
Please.
this. I know your tagline is Piranha Marketing, right?
Yeah, for Piranha Marketing. For Genius Network, we have different things. But
But that's one of the things that it says, we eat our competition alive.
Eat
right?
your competition alive.
Yeah, eat your competition alive. Well, I believe we only compete with one element. And it's not people. It's not corporations. It's not government. It's not God. It's none of that. You compete every day. You wake up when your eyes open, and it's over when your eyes close. And starts over again the next day with only one element, and that is doubt. And the question is, who's winning that race? When I get up at the end of the morning, I'm like, all right, what are we going to do to beat doubt today? I go to bed and I say, all right, who won today? So when I see a pretty girl across the room and I don't go talk to her, doubt won that day. If I have an idea and I think people are going to think it's stupid, so I don't act on it in my business, doubt won that day. If I don't want to exercise because I think it's not going to make that big of a difference on the rest of the day, doubt won that day. Doubt wins enough, you're going to get beat down. If you win, doubt starts becoming afraid of you, life gets amazing. I know, because that's where I'm headed. I mock my doubt. I look at my doubt and I say, you know what? I know you're there on some level to just make me better, so thanks for being there, but I ain't listening to you today, chump. Bring it all, bring out all your ideas of why I'm not enough or why I can't have this. And you might get a little bit ahead of me today, but I promise you, when I'm done with you, you will never want to tangle with me again.
You know what? You're awesome.
Thank you, Joe. You are too, bro.
Thank you for doing this interview. I want to ask our listeners, give me your feedback. I'm sure... a lot of times I'll say, hey, let me know if you want me to interview this person again. Let me know. And, of course, I'll base the feedback on that. But I know for a fact that my listeners are going to want to hear more from you. So I'd like to do a follow-up interview with you. I'd love to hear the feedback from our listeners. I want you to read Sean's book so that you have some perspective. And the next time I do an interview, I'm going to go deep with you on some questions about business, entrepreneurship, making money, and all kinds of stuff that you're really, really good at. However, if you don't get the internal world right, all the external stuff really doesn't matter all that much.
Absolutely.
So, thank you. Any famous last words? Anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello, this is Joe Polish. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this interview. I hope you found it very useful. Please give me your feedback on all of the interviews that you listen to. I'd love to hear your feedback so we can always deliver a great program for you. Our website is www.joepolish.com, and we also have a Joe Polish Recommends section, so you can take a lot of the ideas and concepts that you hear on my Genius Network interview series and apply them to your business and find vendors and resources. You can go to joepolish.com to find that information and click on the Joe Polish Recommends section. And also, if you would like to find out about more interviews and invest in more useful Genius Network series interviews, go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks, and eat your competition alive.